Okay, so for this video, we're going to focus on trying to make it so that the player spawns in the way we want them, reference to the checkpoints. Like you see, I'm spawning this way even though the checkpoint's facing that way. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to the checkpoint script we have. If you haven't been following the series up to this point, you can just copy this code here and this code here. But if you have, what you want to do first is change this line right here. Do you want to change this? Because what this is it's only moving the character to the position of the checkpoint, but not actually changing their direction. So what we want to do is we want to use something called CFrames. And this allows us to manually adjust all the characteristics of the position. So not just the position, but in this case, it's going to be also the direction. And how we're doing this is we're going to take the CFrame of the current player. So it's going to be the same position. We're not changing the position. But what we're doing is we want to change the direction. And we're going to do that by multiplying it by this new coordinate pair that will allow us to change the position by raising the player by about 3.25 blocks. That's because how tall the current player is. Secondly, this is all done in a server script. What we want to do is want to use something called a local script. So go to starter player scripts, and create something called a local script. So what you can think of this as is just something that only runs on the player's computer. You can call this camera.CFrame or whatever you want. It doesn't really matter, but just anything to make sense. So similarly to in local scripts, what we can do is we can get reference to the player themselves, because the local script is going to be running on each individual person's computer. So we want to get reference to the local player. So now we know which player this local script is running for. And then similar to all the other scripts, we want to create a function here. Except this one, it's not going to be triggered directly by the player joining, but we will trigger it manually afterwards. So just copy this code. What you want to do here is player.CharacterAdded connect function. So this is similar to the other codes we've used. Now we want to get a reference to where the checkpoint is and the stage the player is on. So just copy this code. Now we have reference to the stage and the checkpoint that the player's on. Now we need a reference to the player's camera, and we want to adjust the camera to be facing the same direction as the checkpoint. Now we have reference to the checkpoint and the camera, so we want to do a little wait here to make sure that the player is spawned in properly. And then now what we're going to do here is we are going to adjust the camera, similar to how we did for the player. We're going to create a new CFrame, essentially a new direction and new settings for the camera. And we are going to take the one that already exists, because we're not really changing the position of the camera. All we want to do is change the direction, the angle, which way it's facing. So we take that, and then we take the camera, the position of it, and then we add in the checkpoint direction. So we're going to be changing essentially the angle that it's going to be looking in. And now we're going to multiply this by the variable we defined here as camera.Tilt. So essentially, the player is not going to be looking straight forward. They're going to be looking slightly downwards, and it just makes it a bit more enjoyable as the player can see what's ahead of them. Now, this does not run by itself, so we're going to need to call this here. So onPlayerAdded, and this essentially is going to run it just once at the end of the code, rather than how the server script would run it when it actually detects that the player is added. Now, if we go and test, you'll see when we spawn on stage 3, the players spawn facing this way, and the camera will also spawn facing that way. And when I respawned, the same thing happened. There we go. For the next video, I'm going to focus on changing the checkpoint colors when the player touches them, because right now they're all gray and it looks kind of boring and you can't really tell. But they're going to change to something you could make them green.